these so-called 1844 manuscripts provide an account of what's called alienation, which is an important idea in Marx's work, specifically alienation with regards to labor and work. Although Marx was really inspired by thinking about religious alienation, much more of his attention was devoted to exploring alienation in labor. Alienation is essentially when you invest some part of yourself into something that's supposed to give your life value or meaning, but instead just siphons that value away. The more you dedicate yourself to it, the more meaning it takes from you. The more capital the worker produces, Marx says, the more the worker is commodified, the stronger the boss becomes, essentially. He says, the more man puts into God, the less he retains in himself. So Marx there is talking about alienation because of religion. But remember, he also believed that alienation existed because of labor. And so just take that formula for alienation to be the more I put into blank, the less I retain in myself. Let's flesh that out a little bit. Theories of alienation typically presuppose some baseline condition or proper state of being, proper starting point. Alienation is the dysfunctional separation between our natural baseline, where we're supposed to be, and our actual reality as we see it. So for Marx, that baseline seems to be provided by an account of human flourishing, which he conceptualizes in terms of self-realization. So if the baseline is our natural drive to flourish as human beings, alienation is that gap between the flourishing we want as human beings and the actual reality of our situation for laborers in capitalist society. Capitalism, he says, causes alienation because it poisons the relationship between labor and human flourishing. Why is that? Well, Marx argues that work has the potential to be something creative and fulfilling, something that we can do as a project of self-realization. He calls productive activity labor, essentially, but something that we engage in as human beings, perhaps when we don't even need to. Unlike the animals, human beings satisfy their needs, and Marx says what makes them special is that they keep working for the sake of self-realization. He rejects the view of work as a necessary evil, and he denies that the negative character of work is just part of our fate, a universal fact about the human condition that no amount of societal change could ever remedy. Marx argues that self-realization through work is a vital component of human flourishing. Productive activity, on Marx's account, is a central element in what it is to be human. And self-realization is the development and deployment of our essential human capacities. Alienation occurs in a capitalist society because labor in capitalism embodies separations, preventing the self-realization of producers, and it's organized in a way that frustrates the human need for free, conscious, and creative work. So essentially, there's this separation between these fundamental human needs and the existence of, or the reality of labor itself. So there's 4 dimensions of alienated labor. There's, the fact that the immediate producers, these laborers on the ground, as it were, are separated from the product of their labor, right? They're alienated from the thing they create. And immediate producers, these same folks, are separated from their productive activity itself. And in particular, they're forced to work in ways which are mentally or physically or both debilitating. Immediate producers are also separated from other individuals. Contemporary economic relations socialize individuals to view others as merely means to ends, means to their own particular ends. Immediate producers are finally separated from their own human nature. For instance, the human capacities for community and for free, conscious, and creative work are both frustrated by contemporary capitalist relations, according to Marx. So remember, alienation is the process whereby the worker is made to feel foreign to the products of his or her own actual labor. For alienation to occur, these elements are required. There has to be some separation right? There has to be a gap between two things. That separation has to be a problem. And it has to exist between a subject and an object that are supposed to be together, that properly belong together. Alienation is the gap between them. So, alienation is this dysfunctional separation between entities that properly belong together. The subject and object that belong together being split problematically. The subject here is the self, typically, but not necessarily a person, an individual agent. The subject could be, for an instance, a group of some kind. It might be women or citizens that find themselves alienated from their government. The relevant object can be entities which are not a subject, really another subject or objects, and oneself. So Beatrice might be alienated from a social norm, an entity that's not an agent. Beatrice might be alienated from her childhood friend or her own family. Beatrice might be alienated from herself. So remember, Marx is very concerned with the division of classes in society, and he essentially says there's two. Under capitalism, society must fall into two classes: property owners and propertyless workers. The external character of labor for the worker appears in the fact that it's not his own labor. It's somebody else's. It doesn't belong to him. That in it he belongs, not to himself, but to another. The worker's activity is not his spontaneous creative activity. It belongs to another. This is the loss of self. Estranged labor makes man's life activity, his essential being, a mere means to his existence, according to Karl Marx.